On June 28, 1914, a single gunshot in Sarajevo changed the course of human history. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated by Gavrilo Princip, triggering a chain reaction that plunged the world into the First Global War. Over 20 million people died. Empires crumbled. The modern world was born in blood and fire. But what if that fateful shot had missed? What if Franz Ferdinand had survived that day in Sarajevo? Today, we're exploring an alternate timeline where World War I never happened. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand wasn't supposed to succeed. In fact, it nearly didn't. The first attempt that morning failed when a bomb bounced off the Archduke's car. The assassins scattered, believing their mission had failed. It was only by pure chance, a wrong turn by Franz Ferdinand's driver, that brought the Archduke's car to a stop right in front of Gavrilo Princip, who was grabbing a sandwich at a cafe. History turned on coincidence. But what if the driver hadn't made that wrong turn? What if Princip had been somewhere else? What if the gun had jammed, as weapons often did in 1914? Let's explore this fascinating alternate reality where Franz Ferdinand survives June 28, 1914. In our timeline, Austria-Hungary used the assassination as justification to issue an ultimatum to Serbia, leading to a cascade of alliances pulling all of Europe into war. But without the assassination, Austria-Hungary has no casus belli, no justification for aggressive action against Serbia. The July crisis never happens. Russia doesn't mobilize, Germany doesn't declare war, France isn't invaded, Britain doesn't enter the conflict. The complex web of alliances that dragged Europe into catastrophe remains untested. By August 1914, instead of marching to war, European powers are engaged in tense but ultimately successful diplomacy. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Franz Ferdinand wasn't just any Archduke. He was a reformer with big plans for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He wanted to create a United States of Greater Austria, reorganizing the empire along federal lines and giving more autonomy to the various ethnic groups, including the Slavs. When Franz Ferdinand becomes emperor after his uncle Franz Joseph dies in 1916, he implements these reforms. The Austro-Hungarian Empire transforms into a federal system where Czechs, Poles, Croats, and other ethnic groups have meaningful self-governance. This diffuses much of the nationalist tension that tore the empire apart in our timeline. A reformed, federalized Austria-Hungary becomes a model for multi-ethnic coexistence. Instead of the empire collapsing, it modernizes and thrives into the 20th century, potentially surviving to this day as a prosperous Central European confederation. Without World War I, the Russian Revolution likely never happens. The Tsarist regime was overthrown because the war created unbearable strain, millions of casualties, economic collapse, and social breakdown. No war means no collapse. Instead, Russia continues its gradual modernization that was underway before 1914. The Romanov dynasty survives, perhaps evolving into a constitutional monarchy similar to Britain. Communism remains a fringe ideology rather than a world-changing force. Lenin dies in obscurity. Stalin never rises to power. The Soviet Union never exists. This means no Cold War, no Iron Curtain, no division of Europe, no nuclear arms race. The entire second half of the 20th century unfolds completely differently. Before we dive deeper into this alternate timeline, if you're finding this fascinating, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We explore mind-bending alternate histories like this every week. Drop a comment below. Do you think the world would be better without World War I? Let's continue. Without the catastrophic destruction of World War I, there's no Treaty of Versailles imposing crushing reparations on Germany. The harsh terms of that treaty, which humiliated Germany and devastated its economy, created the conditions for Hitler's rise. In this alternate timeline, Germany continues as an imperial monarchy, gradually democratizing throughout the early 20th century. The Weimar Republic never exists because there's no need for it. The Nazi Party remains an insignificant extremist group that never gains traction. Adolf Hitler, who found his purpose and honed his oratory skills during World War I, likely lives his life as a failed artist in Vienna. Without the war to radicalize him and without the national humiliation to exploit, he never becomes a political figure. No Nazi Germany means no Holocaust. 6 million Jews live. Millions of others targeted by the Nazis: Roma, disabled people, political dissidents, LGBTQ individuals, survive. World War II never happens. 70 million lives are saved. The economic implications are staggering. Without two world wars destroying infrastructure, killing working-age populations, and consuming vast resources, European economies developed continuously from 1914 onward. The Great Depression might still occur, but without the added burden of war debt and reconstruction, recovery happens faster. The United States doesn't become a superpower the same way. Without World War I and II to devastate Europe, America doesn't experience the relative rise that made it the dominant world power. Instead, a multipolar world persists, with Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia all remaining great powers. Colonial empires might persist longer without the wars that weakened European powers and emboldened independence movements. India, Africa, and Southeast Asia might gain independence later, or through more gradual negotiated processes rather than revolutionary struggle. Technology advances, but differently. Many innovations were driven by military necessity: radar, rockets, nuclear energy, computers, jet engines. Without world wars forcing rapid development, these technologies emerge more slowly through civilian research. We might be decades behind our current technological level. However, without wars consuming resources, more investment flows into civilian technology and infrastructure. High-speed rail might have developed earlier. Medical research receives more funding. The space race never happens as a Cold War competition, but space exploration proceeds as a scientific endeavor. The cultural landscape is unrecognizable. Modernist art movements like Dadaism and Surrealism, which emerged from the trauma of World War I, never develop. Literature isn't shaped by the lost generation. The cultural pessimism and anxiety that defined much of 20th century art doesn't exist in the same form. Jazz still emerges from African American communities, but doesn't spread globally through American soldiers during the war. Rock and roll might never happen without the cultural mixing that wars create. The entire popular culture of the 20th century follows a completely different path. Fast forward to 2025 in this alternate timeline. Europe is dominated by several constitutional monarchies and federal empires. The Austro-Hungarian Federation, the Russian Empire, the German Empire, and the British Empire are all still major powers, though significantly reformed and democratized. Technology is perhaps 20 or 30 years behind our level, but society is more stable. Two world wars didn't shatter traditional social structures, so change happens more gradually. Women's rights and civil rights advance more slowly without wars creating workforce gaps and social upheaval. The world population is significantly larger, perhaps an extra 150 million people who weren't killed in wars or died from war-related famine and disease. But economic development might be slower without the technological spurring that wars provided. Would this world be better? In many ways, yes. Over 100 million lives saved from World War I, World War II, and the Holocaust alone. No nuclear weapons threatening human extinction. More stable societies and continuous cultural development. But there are complications. Colonial empires might have lasted longer, delaying freedom for billions. Technological and social progress might lag. The accelerated change that wars forced, often terrible, but sometimes progressive, wouldn't have happened. One thing is certain: a world where Franz Ferdinand survived would be fundamentally different from ours in almost every way imaginable. A single bullet, a wrong turn, a moment of chance. These tiny things shape the world we live in today. So what do you think? Would you want to live in a world without the world wars? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this alternate history journey, check out our video on What If Napoleon Won at Waterloo. I'll link it in the description. Don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating historical what-ifs, and I'll see you in the next video.